Hi everyone, my name is Isho. Today, our group Georgiana, Marie, Samia, and myself will be presenting the Wells Fargo fake account scandal. I will be starting with the introduction and early part of the timeline, and after my section, Georgiana will continue. Uh, Why this case matter? This case matter because the misconduct happened inside the regulated trusted bank, not through the external fraud. And employee opened millions of unauthorized accounts because their performance, pay, and even job security depends on meeting daily sales targets. Customers were charged fees. Some have had their credit score damaged, and regulators even stepped into with penalties and reform. This case shows how pressure, incentive, and weak oversight can push an organization into serious ethical problems in long term. And when we talk about the background of Wells Fargo was one of the biggest retail banks in the United States and had a strong public reputation before the scandal. The bank focused heavily on cross-selling, meaning customers were encouraged to hold multiple products. Products per customer become a major performance metric. Inside branches, employees were expected to open new accounts on a daily basis, which over the time created a high pressure sales culture. So what happened in Wells Fargo actually? Because of the pressure of meet targets, employees started opening accounts without customer consent. They use customer information already on the file to create checking, saving debit or credit accounts. Many customers didn't even know these accounts existed until they saw fees or even a damaged credit scores in their credit reports. Uh, in addition to that, money was even moved from between different accounts to make new products look active, and this behavior was widespread and continued for several years across the different branches of the Wells Fargo. When we talk about the timeline, the early 2000s, cross-selling becomes a core strategy for measuring performance. This is when the cultures begin shifting from customer service to hitting sales number. Between 2011 to 2013, employee raised internal concern about the pressure to open accounts. These were early warning signs that something was wrong. And in 2013, LA Times published a very strong story exposing the aggressive sales pressure and unauthorized accounts. This was an early public warning, but it didn't result in major action at that time. In 2016, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau (CFPB) fined Wells Fargo 185 million, marking the first major enforcement action and revealing the scale of the problem nationwide. In late 2016, the CEO was questioned by the US Senate, which led to a leadership changes and public accountability. And in 2017, an internal review showed that the number of unauthorized accounts was even higher than what had originally been reported. This confirmed that the issue was widespread and long term. When we talk about the timeline, in 2018, the Federal Reserve placed an asset cap on Wells Fargo, preventing the bank from growing until its issue has been fixed regarding governance and control. Finally, in 2020, the Department of Justice uh, announced a 3 billion settlement to resolve the criminal and civil investigations. This confirmed the scale of the misconduct and the harm caused to consumer. So this bring me to the end of my section. I will now pass it to Georgiana, my teammate, who will continue with the next part of our presentation. Thank you.
The key stakeholders in this case were numerous. They included executives they included executives who created aggressive sales targets and branch employees who felt pressured to meet those targets. Other stakeholders included customers who ended up with accounts that they had never asked for, and in some cases, accounts that went on to damage their credit. The board of directors also had an important role to play in this scandal, as they could have stepped in earlier, but chose to ignore warning signs regarding Wells Fargo's toxic sales culture. It ended up being the Department of Justice who stepped in to issue fines and ordering reforms upon Wells Fargo. This case is considered a white collar crime because employees were creating unauthorized bank accounts, which violated banker and consumer protection laws. They misled advisors with inflated sales numbers. And it's important to note that this was not an external fraud. This was not something happening to the company. This was the company itself propping up this crime with their own systems and processes. The major cause of this crime was a failure of culture. Sales targets and stock numbers were considered more important than basic banking ethics and consumer needs and protections. Employees also felt extreme pressure that if they did not meet their sales quotas, they would face consequences. Over time, this pressure was normalized, and it was made to believe that unethical behavior was the only way that a person could get ahead or even keep their job within Wells Fargo. The incentive system played a major role in how this scandal unfolded, as pay and performance were tied to products and accounts that employees sold, and targets kept rising even when there was little customer demand. Pressure would come from corporate. There was not a few bad actors. This was a complete executive failure, and as a result, many employees resulted to shortcuts in order to just keep their jobs. This case shows how toxic incentives and poor oversight, including from the board of directors and executives within the company, can create organizational misconduct and white collar crime. Thank you, and I will pass it over to my team member Samia for the next part.
Thank you, Georgiana. So basically, it was a complete governance failure due to a Wells Fargo incident. The leadership purely targeted, like they focused on the number of the sales and the referral without like asking like how they were achieved or how they could get onto it. There were like early sign were treated as an issue, but it was never resolved. It was never a pattern. The risk and the compliance were affected most because they did not have, or they had like a very slight capacity and authority to influence the sales strategy. Moreover, they didn't have any control on the sales targets. The board didn't challenge, which means that the board never questioned or asked or monitor whether the targets were realistic, in a sense that if they are able to, employees are able to achieve the target, or it is going beyond their capacity, or if they're overwhelmed or they're being swamped. So, and at the same time, if customers really need that, so there was no alignment between banks, the customer's requirement, and at the same time, what banks and employees are doing for them. Second, with the fifth point, there was definitely a misleading gap over the years before the major actions were taken. So, which means that ever since these occurrences have been going on, there was not any initiative taken in order to overcome this complete failure. In terms of the controls and reporting, which is again caused a big major governance failure, is that what we can see it from here, system for operating new accounts didn't require strong customer consent. So in the bank, as per the regulatory body, like whenever any bank open an account for customers, they're supposed to take the consent and the verification. But the Wells Fargo used to maintain a strong strong constant verification, which was not needed, but employees were bound to do that. There was like an unusual hike in account activity, were not escalated early. So the account went without any monitoring the account, the activity of the customers. There was like number more than one required activity that was not compliant. Third would be like cross-selling numbers reported to investors overstated genuine customer activity. Fourth is like internal complaint did not move up to senior leadership because even if there were any major complaint lodged, it never escalated to the senior leadership or to like it was never highlighted. And lastly, the controls monitored results, but not whether those results were achieved ethically, which means that there were like major number of monitor. It is said to be there were like reported to be monitored, but in real case scenario, it was never achieved ethically, which was totally unethical and unrealistic and not solicited. Now, I would like to pass my rest of the presentation to Mary, who will take control from here. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Samia. How could it have been prevented internally? First, regular enhancement and update of compliance framework should have done with the internal policy. Link employees' performance to customer satisfaction and service quality instead of product volume. Instead of concentrating with the number of sales, they should have double-checked the quality of the service that the employees have provided. They should have required clear documented consent for every new account or financial product. And there should be another steps before approving any account openings within new accounts with customers. Audit account opening patterns as mentioned. There should be a manager who would approve and double check every account opening if it's genuine and everything is processed accordingly to detect inactive duplicate or any accounts open for a short time. They should have created safe reporting channels so employees can raise concern without fear of consequence. It can also be considered as reporting anonymously, so no one would be targeted after if someone is too scared to report any misconduct with the team. It's like part of the strong compliance system to prevent misconduct and detect issues early, and to give compliance team authority to challenge business decisions tied to aggressive targets. And how could it have been prevented externally? The board of directors could have reviewed sales incentives regularly and challenged unrealistic goals. They should have not consecrated the top management with the total number of sales that they can achieve and the amount of money that will come to the business. Independent oversight focus on conduct and culture could have identified concern earlier. Immediate action should have been taken to mitigate employee misconduct. Then transparent reporting to investors could have prevented misleading performance claims. It can also be part of sales program and performance management systems. It should be aligned with ethical standards, including prioritizing data protection and privacy in account opening. And regulators could have been escalated actions after early signs or reports of pressure in many of the unauthorized accounts. And lastly, our key takeaways from the case. Incentives must support the ethical decision, not just the growth targets. As mentioned before, the board of directors and top management should then be concentrated on the amount of sales that will come to the business. They should have considered if everything is ethical and according to the regulator policy and with their compliance system. Ethical risk should be monitored the same way financial risks are. Then compliance influence behavior more than written values and policies. They should adopt ethical leadership that prioritizes integrity over short-term gains. And then there will be strong oversight protects customers and the organization in the long term. There should be an enforced strong internal controls and monitoring mechanisms. And lastly, governance requires questioning positive results, not just reporting them. That's all for our presentation. If you have questions and answer, let us know. Thank you.